Alright, I will be reviewing my process development for the problem's maxes and process scores. So beginning with maxes, our objective is going to be making a method named maxes which will compare two integer arrays and return an array with the larger element for each index. The returned array should have the same length as the largest array in the comparison. It should use the larger array's values at indexes that don't exist in the shorter array. Alright, defining our method. So we know it returns an integer array, which is noted there, and accepts two parameters which are also integer arrays that I've named array1 and array2. So first step of development, I decided to establish the variables I used. So biggest array, which is the array with the largest length given by the parameters, smallest array, and then return array. So returned array is going to be an array we're returning back into the main. And so the first hurdle that I encountered was, how do we assign the longer / shorter arrays to the respective variables? And so I did this by using an if statement where I'm comparing the lengths of the array1 and array2 and then assigning them to the biggest or smallest array respectively. And so this creates a second issue. Because we directed these arrays to the original arrays in the main, we must acknowledge the aspects of reference semantics. So changing biggest array or smallest array will affect array1 and array2, which will affect the arrays that were given as an argument from the main. And so we don't want to change these two variables. And so how do we manipulate the arrays in order to compare their values? And so I did this by using a for loop where I am copying the values of biggest array into the return array here. And so this will copy the values but not directly link the arrays to each other. And so whatever I do to a return array will not affect biggest array and will not affect the arrays outside this method. In earlier iterations, I attempted to directly manipulate and return biggest array after comparing it to the smallest array. However, this caused an error as it changed the values outside of the method due to reference semantics, and this issue is completely avoided by using this for loop here. Next hurdle was, how do we update the return array to have the larger elements between the biggest and smallest array? So we've already copied the biggest array onto the return array, so we simply need to iterate through the smallest array and compare its values to the return array here. And so I did that using a for loop where I'm looping through the values of smallest array, and then an if statement where I'm comparing the values of smallest array to return array and updating them as a consequence. So after all of this is done, I simply return the return array, which will give us this. And so after that, everything should be updated. Yeah. At the end, when we run it, it should look like this. Yep.